Ike Jones in here with my man Caesar Walker. We are one half of the War Report in here tonight. Just coming to y'all real quick. We hadn't talked to you all since, oh man, it's been over a week. It's been too long, but get the formalities out of the way. Of course, you already know if you want to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, the War Report is where you can do that. We will likely be doing a lot more social media stuff in the off season of football. So that's going to be a way that you can keep up with us during the week. So just keep an eye out for stuff like that coming up during the off season and stay locked in right there. Of course, we are still going to continue to do shows during the off season of football, i.e. tonight. But you can click like and subscribe on that YouTube. Let's get those YouTube numbers up. We want to try to make sure that we can be a part of what's going on with the Auburn family on a consistent basis. And as always, we just have to remember 48-5. Anyway, so as we continue with conversations about what's going around in the SEC, first of all, man, C, how you doing, man? Everything good?
Everything's good, bro. Good Saturday today, low key. So all's well. I missed Auburn winning against St. Louis today, but you filled me in on that before we got started.
Yeah, it was definitely a good showing from the Auburn team. A few times that maybe want to curse the TV a little bit about some shot selection and missed free throws and not doing a great job, which St. Louis is a really good rebounding team, but not doing a great job on the defensive glass to try to limit the second chance points. But overall, I think it was a good team. Still an undefeated team, one of the few undefeated teams left in the nation. So not upset about that. The outcome is always a wonderful thing when you get the W. So.
And I read something even prior to us getting on. I read where they're tied for the best start in program history, I think, at 9-0. So even though we've had some games where we could have lost them, can't complain with where we are right now.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I say you can't. I'm not going to be upset at the outcome. But I am looking forward to the SEC play and seeing some things that they definitely need to clean up as they start to get not necessarily better competition, because I think they've played some good teams, but competition that I think matches them a little bit more in physicality. So like just the athletes that might not necessarily be better athletes with them, but more on par with them in athleticism. But they've played some really, really well-coached teams, some teams that have some good style matchups for them that have made it more difficult for them to do things as liberally as they have been in the past. But hopefully we're going to see them do a much better job and start to clean up some of that stuff, specifically free throw shooting and again, some of that shot selection that can be crucial as you get into those tighter games when you get into conference play. But
yeah, some of these teams we've played, like I'm gonna keep an eye on them. Some of these teams look like they'll be tournament teams.
Yeah, and see, it's hard to judge that early in the year, right? Like you got teams that look good, but like, are they looking good because Auburn's not that great, or are they looking good because they're legitimate teams and we just we played really good teams? So that's going to be something we're going to have to wait and see later on in the year as to whether or not it's a real thing or an aberration.
Time will tell.
Indeed. But yeah, man.
Let's talk about these coaches, man.
Yeah, we need to talk about what's going on here in the SEC. As we all have probably seen by now, definitely not breaking news anymore, but Auburn lost their offensive coordinator and in the span of a week was able to rehire a new one. So currently we have
24 hours, actually.
Was it 24 hours that it took? But it definitely, I don't think it was a secret.
Tuesday.
Yeah, it was not a secret as to who the top candidate was. And then we landed him. So, give us something about our new offensive coordinator.
Chad Morris, been friends with Gus for years. Actually, Chad owes a lot of his success to Gus because in high school, Chad Morris took over for Gus Malzahn, or he went to visit Gus Malzahn up in Arkansas and learned from him in terms of like his offense. He went back to Texas, won state championships, did very well. He ended up, I believe he got his start as an offensive coordinator at Tulsa, I believe he got his start as OC at Tulsa, was there for a year and then went to Clemson. And pretty much the rest, as they say, is history for his coaching start. He basically helped start. He was one of the pivotal pieces for Clemson jump-starting their program, basically. That offense that they run today, there's a lot of Chad Morris influence in that offense today.
Yeah, and that offense became high powered at Clemson when Chad Morris got
absolutely,
there.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping to see some, and there have been people who I've talked to about this over the week that were kind of poo-pooing the Chad Morris hiring because, of course, like most football fans, I'm not just blaming Auburn fans, but most football fans don't keep up with anything outside of their team, right? Or anything that doesn't directly affect their conference. So they would not have known who Chad Morris was until he became the head coach at Ole Miss, right? And so, not Ole Miss, excuse me, Arkansas, until he became the head coach at Arkansas. And so that's all they really know about him, right? And so you don't realize that as an offensive mind, Chad Morris has been doing it for a long time and doing it well. Like he's had some great success on the offensive side of the ball. So I think it's a good a good hire at offensive coordinator. The question is always going to be at Auburn with Gus Malzahn as your head coach, how much actual influence or ability is Chad Morris going to have for affecting the game plan and the play calling that happens on Saturdays?
Your guess is as good as mine. But we have a group chat. And we was keeping up with this, and I said in the group chat, I'm not sure if I'm going to be happy with this hire because up until Chad Morris, Gus Malzahn has pretty much have hired guys who probably have not been experienced enough to get the title of OC, and so I felt like this was going to be another hire where Malzahn just brought on someone kind of like the Kenny Dillingham. Like, I'm still calling the plays. I just want you to work with the quarterback, help scheme, put together a game plan throughout the week, and that's all I need you for. On game days, get out the way. I got the clipboard. I'm calling the plays. I felt like it was going to be that kind of a hire, which wouldn't have been a splash OC hire. Here comes Chad Morris, who's by far Malzahn's most accomplished offensive assistant that he's hired since being the head coach at Auburn. And it kind of makes you wonder what direction is Malzahn going in moving forward, because you don't want a guy who's been a head coach for the past 4 years, who knows what it's like to have complete control. You're going to tell him to sit back like you told Kenny,
right?
And he agrees to it. I don't know. So to me, I stand corrected. This was a very interesting hire, and it makes you wonder just how much influence will Chad Morris brings, and that's something I want to talk about. What can we expect to see moving forward, even if Chad is not necessarily calling plays? What can we expect to see different in this offense moving forward that we haven't seen up to this point?
Yeah, I mean, so what I expect to see is just better. So the Clemson teams that were super successful, and even the SMU teams that he was able to bring along, they had good quarterback play, and they were able to develop dynamic. Like their passing game was super dynamic. Like you think back to, gosh, who are the quarterbacks for those teams? I know Sammy
Boyd.
Yeah, Taj Boyd was the guy. Like Taj Boyd had a really great college career from a statistics standpoint. Those teams were always. Those teams were just like always right on the cusp. They always had like some monumental collapse in the season that were able made them not really achieve what they could have from a talent perspective. But it wasn't because they weren't able to put up points. Those teams were consistently putting up points. They had dynamic wide receiver talent. You think about Mike Williams was on that team. Sammy Watkins was on those teams. Like those were teams that were able to really get up and down the field and put up a ton of points consistently. They just had bad defenses. They couldn't stop anybody. So hopefully we're going to be able to see that. We're going to see them develop an actual passing scheme that's going to be competent, because right now I don't, and they had spread systems. So it wasn't that we weren't running spread. I think if we take what Gus Malzahn does in the way that he's able to scheme runs and call run fits and get some better scheme in the passing game on the back end, we can have a dynamic offense with Chad Morris in place there. We just got to figure out, he really needs to take control of development of the quarterback. And I don't want to push Cody Burns out of the spot that he is in as a wide receivers coach, but really take the helm as the passing game coordinator. Like, so that's what Cody Burns' co-title is right now, wide receivers coach / pass game coordinator. I think that Chad Morris really needs to take over figuring out how to get that passing game gelling the way that it needs to be, that communication between the receivers and the quarterback, and have the fundamentals that are going to be necessary for our current freshman of the year in the SEC and all SEC freshman quarterback, Bo Nix, to make the ascension that people have been assuming that he was going to be able to take.
Right. I agree with that. I think the passing game, I mean, that's pretty much what needs work. I think it's our running game. People know what we do on the ground. People know what we like to do. And it's amazing, 7 years in, we've had continued success there. But if you're struggling to throw the ball,
right,
it makes it easy for defenses to key in on what we do well. And so with Chad Morris coming in, the hope is that he can scheme up the offense to keep defenses honest, and allow Gus to be able to run the ball effectively and get back to running the ball like we used to. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to better talent evaluation on the offensive side as well.
For sure.
One of the
making
things
sure
that
we're scheming up the guys that are our playmakers, putting them in the position to actually be on the field and get the ball in their hands more effectively.
Absolutely. And I look at what you mentioned, Taj Boyd, but Chad Morris is also responsible for bringing in guys like Deshaun Watson when he was at Clemson. And we saw what kind of career he had.
Right.
We saw what he's doing currently in the NFL. So you're looking at a guy who can look at talent and assess, okay, this kid has what it takes. That's one of the things that we have seen, during Malzahn's time at Auburn. We've been having these misses at quarterback, in terms of guys who look the part, but for whatever reason, when they put on that Auburn helmet and walk out on the field, it's a different result, especially with quarterbacks coming straight out of high school. Now we've had success with transfers, but recruiting a kid from high school, developing them, and them being NFL ready, we have not seen that. Chad Morris also recruited, if you recall, you remember Chad Kelly, who ended up transferring from Clemson and going to Ole Miss, where he lit our defenses up a time or two.
Right.
So I'm looking to see better evaluation of talent at the quarterback position, and I think that's something that Chad Morris brings to the table. Quarterback development. I'm eager to see better improvement. I just want to see better mechanics from Bo Nix. That's something that Mike G has mentioned time and time again in previous recordings. We want to just see him stay in the pocket, move around in the pocket, plant his feet, and throw a good ball, not stare down receivers. And those are things that I'm going to be looking forward to with Chad Kelly. We talked about it. Better, more complex passing schemes, better evaluation of talent, and basically developing and coaching up a quarterback.
Yeah. So speaking of quarterback talent evaluation, and what do we think? Do you think that his dad getting hired here is going to put us in a good position to get the son on campus, Chandler Morris?
Yes, I do. I think it was a given, especially if Chad landed at a major program. I think whatever program that was, with Chad Morris being involved offensively, we stand. Now, is he coming out this year, or is he a 2021 prospect?
I think he's a 2020 prospect. Yeah, he's class of 2020. So it'll be this year that he's making a decision. Right now, Oklahoma. So he was committed at Arkansas, of course, before his dad got let go. And Oklahoma is the team that swooped in and made a big push for him after that. My man Bear says, hopefully we finally get a wide receiver. I'm not super worried about our wide receiver talent. Like, we don't, Bear, if you don't know Bear, but Bear is a big Bama fan. So we definitely don't have the wide receiver core that Bama has. I'm not going to pretend as if we do. But I'm not dissatisfied with what we have as a receiver. I'm dissatisfied with our ability to effectively use the receiver talent that we have.
Right.
I think we actually have some pretty good receiver talent. We just got to have to use them more effectively and have better route trees that allows, because it's not as if our issue was drop balls last year.
Right.
I don't even think our issue was necessarily separation. I just think that the routes that we were running in the back end weren't very good, and our protection wasn't very good.
Yeah, they're stale. Yeah, I mean,
so,
most teams know what we're going to do. So yeah, it's hard to get open continuously throughout the game, and as well, you got a quarterback who misses wide receivers. Even when he sees them, he's not getting them the ball in an area where they can get the ball and make plays.
Right.
So yeah, that's been our problem.
I'm not super concerned with our ability to get wide receivers. I do think that Chad Morris will help us to be able to recruit better wide receivers, just because they might have more confidence in our ability to throw the ball with a scheme that will allow us to do that effectively. So they can say to them, look, hey, this guy's put top right wide receiver talent into the NFL in his time as a offensive coordinator, and we can hopefully start to see some improvement in that pass game over the next couple of years to get some of that top talent to say, oh man, this is where I can actually go and show my skills at this school. Right now, we can't say that. So why would a top receiver even want to come to school here? Lane Kiffin did that for Alabama. Before Lane Kiffin got to Alabama, was Alabama recruiting highly touted quarterbacks and wide receivers? No, they were getting offensive line talent and running backs, because that's what that offense was predicated on. And so hopefully we'll start to see the same thing as Chad Morris helps out with our offensive strategy going forward.
Another thing to consider too is that Chad Morris actually used a tight end in his offenses. And so it'll be interesting to see from a recruiting standpoint, as well as who he leverages currently on our roster, who becomes that go-to guy in the passing schemes for Auburn, like who becomes the go-to for tight ends. And that's something that has been strangely missing from Auburn's offenses with Gus Malzahn as a head coach, because we remember we had some pretty good ones years ago. Philip Lutzenkirchen, rest in peace. I mean, we definitely have used tight ends in this offense before. So with Chad Morris coming in, do we start using that? And maybe that kind of changes some things offensively for us in the passing game. With us having a tight end that defenses have to be concerned about. So,
yeah, I think that's going to be a huge thing for us, is really getting the passing game on track to where I'm not saying that we've got to be, tops in the country, even tops in the SEC. It's just got to be effective enough to keep the defense honest. So they're not saying, okay, we're just going to sit on these short routes and then hope a guy can't beat us over the top. Like we have, as Mike likes to say every time he says his name, the fastest guy in college football on our team. So we have somebody who can take the top off of a defense and is a threat to go over the top. We didn't effectively use him last year to do that. And we need to be able to, again, just put the talent that we have on the field. We've got some guys that are talented, put them in the spots where they can be effective, figure out what this guy does well, and how can I put the ball in his hands and get him to be a playmaker out there, and take some of that pressure off of Bo Nix to have to make amazing throws, or take some pressure off of our offensive line for trying to have to hold up for these long developing routes down the field, and just get it in the position where we're throwing those quick slants more consistently, and we're having better screen games, and we're, like you said, utilizing the tight end and having that square end route be a part of our what we're doing. Again, just scheme better on the passing side, so that when we're running this offense that has become what people used to say, not pro style, the spread offense is prolific throughout pro sports right now. This has become the staple of most offenses, something that looks better scheme wise on the back end of that, and not just a good run scheme that is predictable because nothing's happening on the back end that you have to be worried about.
Right. Agreed.
So we will see how Chad Morris does. He's not going to, he does have an opportunity right now, because we have not gotten all of the recruiting done, to come in and make some impact on who we can bring in for the 2020 recruiting cycle. Again, his son is still out there as a possibility. I don't know how much his son would want to come play here, considering we have a starter who's a freshman, right? So like, does he come in and say, well, I'll redshirt a year so that, Bo Nix plays out, the next 2 years, and maybe he leaves as a junior, and then he can come in and start his sophomore year or his redshirt sophomore year? I don't know. They're going to have to sell him on that, because again,
we don't have a really, hey, we have a backup, but we can sell him on being the number 2 guy. I don't know. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely still open. Like if they can sell him on a quarterback competition, which I think is still open, then there's possibility that he'll come in and he'll say, "Hey, I'm willing to compete for that job." And what I've seen from his tape has been pretty good. And of course, he's coaches' sons are always the more technically sound guy that you see coming out. But does he have the athleticism to stand up in the SEC for a full season? We'll see. That's yet to be seen. So. I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what comes out of that.
How long do you think Chad Moore stays, man?
That's a great question. That's a question that I don't know because, once you get that head coaching, so some guys, so we talked a little bit before getting on air about our defensive coordinator, right? So like he used to be a head coach. I don't think he wants to be a head coach anymore. And he hasn't shown any signs of even entertaining these head coaching opportunities that have been out here. He definitely could have gotten, I believe, if he wanted to be a head coach somewhere again, someone would have hired him as a head coach.
Smaller school, of course, but definitely a head coach.
I think he could have gone to. I think he could have gone to a team like Arkansas. Arkansas just hired the guy from Appalachian State, so it's not as if he's got a better coaching profile.
Missouri.
Excuse me, yeah, Missouri. I think he could have gone to Missouri or even to Arkansas, as a head coach. So it might not have been, the opening in Florida State that was open after, but
he could have got the FAU job.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are jobs out there that he could have gotten. I don't know that he'd been paid as well. He wouldn't have had access to the same kind of talent just because of the recruiting thing. But the question for Chad Morris is does he feel like, what? Head coaching just isn't me. I'm an offensive coordinator. I'm just going to be the best offensive coordinator that there is and continue to do this really well and get paid really well to be an OC somewhere. And if he does that and he's like, this is a great place for me, then maybe he just stays here and continues to be awesome at offensive coordinating. Like, we'll see. I don't know. I think that's really going to be more so on Chad Morris than anything else. Because if he comes here and he does well, somebody's going to come calling again for him.
Absolutely, because we're kind of a known commodity at this point offensively. People know what our weaknesses are, and if he improves upon that, he's going to stand out. He's going to stand out because if we improve offensively and our defense holds serve over the course of the next few years, we are a playoff team.
Correct. Absolutely correct. If we continue to do what we've been doing defensively the last couple of years and our offense marginally improves, we're going to be routinely in the playoffs, in the conversation for the playoffs every single year.
He's going to be seen as the missing key to finally get Auburn to turn the corner as a complete program. So, he will have his pick pretty much of where he wants to go in a lot of places. I think once he gets the stench of Arkansas behind him, and that may take about a year or two to do that. Yeah. And with success here, I'm giving him 2 years. I could be wrong, but I'm giving him 2.
Yeah, I mean, so we see what happens over, with coaches that have had bad head coaching experiences, a la Lane Kiffin. Wasn't a great wasn't a great head coach in either of his stints at head coach. Muschamp is still not a good head coach, but guys who have gone other places after taking a step back. I don't know. I don't even know how he's still the head coach at South Carolina. South Carolina's got a ton of patience with a team that is super underachieving, with a coach that has been as highly touted as Muschamp. So I don't know, man. I don't know how he's continuing to get jobs, but he's held on to the South Carolina job for a couple of years now. But when he was at Florida, he was terrible. He came here for a year and then left and went to South Carolina, and he's been terrible there. So I don't know. I think he's another guy that needs to just say, you know what? I'm a really good defensive coordinator, and I just need to go get a high-paying job as a D coordinator somewhere and just do that. Just play the position that you were meant to play. Bear says here, that's a lot of pressure. Gus ain't the easiest to work with play calling wise. I do not disagree. Gus has traditionally run OCs out of town just because he didn't want to work with them on allowing him to just get away from the play calling responsibilities. I don't think Chad Morris necessarily has to call plays though. And I don't necessarily have a huge issue with Gus's ability to call plays. I have a huge issue with his ability to scheme for a team, like put together an effective game plan and have, again, in the passing game specifically, I think he is one of the most creative run play designers and gadget play designers that exists. He's a brilliant offensive mind when it comes to thinking outside of the box. He pretty much popularized the tempo type of play that's been going on in college football now, which he is not running as fast as he used to. But it's been the passing game that he's been ineffective with scheming really well. His passing games that were effective were because he had good run games and he could run play action off of them. And so now that teams have caught up to that a little bit, it's not working as well. So you've got to scheme it better, and he just doesn't do that to me.
What makes this hire very intriguing, like we said earlier, is that this guy who we just hired can speak from a place of authority. He's been a head coach. He's had success, massive success as an OC. And so this guy actually is someone who has a relationship with Gus and someone that Gus can actually trust and lend an ear to. And this guy can actually influence the offenses in ways that Dillingham could not, Lindsey could not, and Lashley could not. So it remains to be seen. We know Gus's history as being difficult to work with on the offensive side of the football, but this is someone who Malzahn has been talked about in Auburn circles. This is someone who Malzahn definitely respects his football mind.
Yeah.
And so if he does respect Chad Morris in that regard, then Chad Morris has an open door to actually improve the issue with Auburn's offense, and that's the passing game.
So this is something. So, I mean, we heard about this like every time we played against them in Arkansas about the relationship that those two had. Do you think that once Chad Morris was fired from Ole Miss, he told Dillingham, hey, I'm going to go out there and try to hire my friend. If an opportunity pops up for you, you should take it. Like, do you think that that was a thing where he was like, he wanted him and he was going to demote Dillingham to something else? Like a QB coach or something like that, and go out there and get Chad Morris. We haven't seen the details of the Chad Morris contract either. Like, I want to see how much they're paying this guy, because when he was at Clemson, he was getting paid over $1 million a year to be the offensive coordinator. And so it would be a significant pay cut if he was paying anywhere near what Dillingham was getting, which is $500,000 a year. So I'm very interested to see what this contract looks like for Chad Morris. But do you think that that's a possibility that that Dillingham saw the handwriting on the wall, and he was like, hey, this is a good chance for me to go team back up with my guy out here in Florida State. Let me go out here and be a true OC again at a bigger program.
I think it's the opposite. I think Dillingham left Memphis to get exposure at a big time program, and as long as his mentor was still coaching at Memphis, Dillingham was going to try to develop his career elsewhere. But once he got hired as Florida State's head coach, now you get the best of both worlds. I get exposure at a bigger program, and I get to coach alongside my mentor, who's going to eventually give me more responsibilities as time goes on. To me, it was a no-brainer for Dillingham leaving. I just think the stars align in such a way to where Chad Morris happened to get fired. And of course, because the three of those guys have all relationships with one another, it could have been work behind the scenes. Like, hey, Dilly, you know, your mentors at FSU, you know, I think that's a good opportunity and look for you to this and that and the third. Well, at the same time, you know, it's kind of like the puppet master. You just moving pieces and putting people in place. And I just think the stars align for Chad Morris to come on board with Dillingham landing in a nice place.
Yeah, I think it absolutely was the right decision for Dillingham to go to Florida State because I don't know how much growth he was going to be getting under Gus which ended up being a glorified quarterback coach. Like, he wasn't a true offensive coordinator here in this system.
Right.
So I just don't know that he was going to be able to grow in that way. But I am interested to see.
He truly was Cody Burns' equal. He just happened to coach quarterbacks.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, him and Cody Burns basically had the same job. And I would say, even to the degree of like game day, Cody had more responsibility. You were seeing Cody actually out there helping call play. Like, I didn't see a thumbprint of Dillingham on this system at all. Like, I went there. You can't show me any. And maybe it's because I don't know anything behind the scenes in the way he was helping to develop the game plans and scheme and strategy throughout the season. You can't show me anything that says, man, Dillingham had a really good effect on this program from year to year, like from the year before he got here to this year.
From a coaching standpoint, no, but he was recruiting very well.
Yeah.
I will give him that. But from a coaching standpoint, footprint, no, I agree. I'm with you on that.
So I think we both think this is a good hire. Why do you think that Chad Morris and his ability to scheme well and do this offensive stuff, he just didn't have the success at Arkansas? Like, what do you think he learned from his time at Arkansas, and what do you think is going to make him more successful now as an OC here?
And this would be a great way to segue into Arkansas's coaching staff change. I think that with here, he has the pieces that he's been trying to recruit at Arkansas.
Yeah.
Arkansas is in a weird space.
Yep.
I thought the hire was weird for Chad Morris just because of who the previous head coach was, right?
Yeah, they were dire. They were
you had
complete
Brett Billum, who was 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yeah.
And so from a talent standpoint, yeah, you're probably going to lose some games. And I think what Chad learned most of all is that he's learning that you have to tailor. Let's face it, Chad Morris is a system coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think he may have, hopefully he learned that you're going to have to tailor your offense to what your personnel is and what they happen to do best, right? You eventually recruit to do the things that you want to do, but you have to utilize the talent that you have on hand. And I think that's something that got Chad Morris in trouble early and often as Arkansas's head coach. At Auburn,
he definitely already has the skilled players to do that. Yeah.
Right. He has the players here to do what he wants to do. So he's like a kid in a candy store. But I think moving forward, hopefully he can be savvy enough to leverage the talent we have on hand and take advantage of our strengths and try to mitigate the weaknesses.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be the first time since him being at Clemson, and even then, it wasn't easy to recruit at Clemson, but at least he was in a Power 5 conference that he was in one of the better schools in that conference. Like being at Arkansas, he is way down the list on people's options for where they want to go as an SEC school. And he's going to be
that's not a hot place to recruit people.
Yeah, as Mike says all the time, we're in the top 10 in talent every year. So he's going to have the ability to recruit the talent that he really wants, to be in a system that he really wants. And I think that that's going to show marked improvement in our ability to score points and move the ball offensively, just because the talent's going to be better for a guy who schemes really well on offense.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, we brought up Arkansas. They have a new head coach.
Yeah.
Sam Pittman, who was Georgia's O-line coach, and I believe he was calling plays offensively for Georgia last year. He is now the head coach for the Arkansas Razorbacks, which
it's an interesting hire.
It's an interesting hire. I get it because Arkansas, again, I feel like Chad Morris was a weird hire for Arkansas, just because it's a departure from what Arkansas
had been
for how their program is ran. They're a hard-nosed, blue-collar.
Well, so the thing is, like, honestly, I think Bielema was more of the weird hire. Like, if you think about the Houston Nut years, like the Wildcat, like they still were a run-heavy team, but they were still more. I don't know. Like Bielema really took it back to, classic smash mouth football that nobody.
It was Wisconsin South.
Yeah,
that's basically what he tried to turn it into. Wisconsin South.
So
and it didn't work out because the defense. I mean, the defenses, and you got to remember, Bielema came to Arkansas at a time where defenses still rule the day, and a lot of people were copying their defenses after Saban, which is built to stop those types of offenses. Yeah. So Bielema had marginal success, and when he got fired, in comes Chad Morris trying to run Auburn's offense in Wisconsin, basically.
Yeah.
That's pretty much sums up the issue Chad Morris had there. But now you bring in a guy who's kind of, he wants to do some of the same things. I don't know how the recruiting has gone over the past 2 years as Chad Morris is their head coach, but Arkansas is in a weird space to me.
Yeah,
and I feel like they're going to have to be patient with Sam.
Somebody. They're going to have to be patient with somebody. Like, it's going to take more than 3 or 4 years.
Because you got players all over the place. and
Yeah,
you
I
don't
think
know.
the ultimate undoing of Chad Morris, though, was they just did not ever win an SEC game. Like, patience is one thing, but like, can you get us one W out there? Like, just one of them. Like, I'm not asking you to win a bunch of games, but gosh, can we just not be the doormat for the SEC every single year?
Yeah,
And so
I just don't think
hopefully,
he was a culture. He was a good culture fit for
nah,
them, and
yeah,
sometimes that matters. Sometimes that's a big deal. I look at who's the guy got canned by FSU. I don't think he was a good culture fit
yeah.
for FSU.
I can't think of his name right now.
Willie
Former
Taggart.
Oregon
Willie
coach. Yeah,
Taggart. Willie
Taggart.
T.
Yeah,
I don't think he was a good culture fit. I was happy for him for the hire, but he just wasn't a good culture fit. I don't feel like he always was on a short leash. And
yeah,
I feel like Chad Morris was of a similar situation just because he was so different from what Arkansas was used to. Granted, you know, there's always been this kind of a love affair with Arkansas and Gus Malzahn, but Chad Morris is not Gus Malzahn. So
yeah,
I feel like him not winning conference games as well as not really fitting in culturally to that program and the people of Arkansas, I feel like he it was a recipe for disaster for him in
yeah.
hindsight, of course. So
Yeah,
um,
it's gonna be interesting though with Pittman being the guy over there,
he did bring on Missouri's former head coach, Barry Odom.
which I
He
thought
signed
was
on.
super interesting as well.
Why you say it's interesting?
I just don't know that Barry Odom's a great coach. Like he's an okay guy, but he's being hired as a DC when I don't know that. So statistically, Missouri's defense was actually decent. Like, so let me not just completely um, crap on Missouri as a defensive team. Statistically, they were a decent defense. But I just like we'll see, and maybe one of those things again where he was more suited as a coordinator than he is as a head coach, and he's going to bring Missouri back up to where they can be in contention for the East, which the East is wide open every single year. It seems like it's been between Georgia and Florida for as long as I can remember since Tennessee fell out of respectability. It's been Georgia and Florida as a coin toss for who was going to win the East. Missouri had a couple of years in there where they were able to break through when they first got into the SEC, but we'll see. We'll see what it's going to be like in Arkansas. It's just it's tough. Like that they have a tough job building a program down there.
Yeah, and let's be clear, Odom was a weird hire for Missouri, just
Yeah,
because Missouri came out of the Big 12 cutting its teeth on having an exciting, innovative offense. You hire a defensive guy to run your program, and of course, he's going to change the whole blueprint of your program. You're going to be more defensive minded. You're going to that's where his emphasis is going to be. So I felt like that was a weird hire for him. I don't know. I think he may do a good job at Arkansas. I think Sam Pittman's biggest hire coming up is OC, the
yeah.
offensive coordinator. Where are you going to do with this offense, buddy? Because that's where your problems have gone on.
Yeah, because Arkansas hasn't had a terrible defense. Like they've been a tough
Right.
defense that they've been giving up a lot of points, but it's more so because they're on the field way too much. Because the offense has been terrible again, which makes again people say is Chad Morris the right hire? I just don't know that the problem with Chad Morris was his ability to call plays. I think it was talent on the offensive side of the ball. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Super interested in seeing how Missouri is going. So this is when I saw, we're going to kind of tackle these both at the same time a little bit. But when I saw that Lane Kiffin got hired in the SEC, I just knew he was going to Missouri. I thought he was going to go to Missouri just because of what I just said.
He was my pick too for Missouri.
The reason why I say that though is because why do you want to go to the SEC West? Like SEC East is wide open. Like, go and take a program that is kind of obscure right now, that has had some recent success, and go and you're a lot closer to being able to be respectable in the SEC West and compete for that SEC title than you are at Ole Miss. Like Ole Miss is, they do get better recruits at Ole Miss than Missouri does. So maybe he was looking at where I can recruit really well. I just think it's going to be
I think that's what it was. I think that's where it was. And I 2 reasons. I got 2 reasons why I feel he took the job. Number one, and you cannot underestimate it, his ego.
Yeah.
He has a big ego, and he has the type of ego to where he's like, of course I can go into the SEC West with LSU at the strongest they've ever been in recent years, and Alabama being Alabama and Auburn. Of course I can go in there and shake things up. I'm like, he has that kind of ego, number one. So he's not going to run away from a challenge in that regard. Even if he falls flat on his face, he just has that blind faith to say, hey, I can shake things up. Number two is the locate. Like, we've seen Ole Miss recruit well. So we know it can be done. Now, granted, yes, the NCAA came snooping around. There was some shakiness there, but we do know it can be done, right?
Right.
And
it's not impossible to get talent there. So
right. And Lane Kiffin has done it at USC as well as Tennessee. He's gotten recruits. So I feel that he can bring in the athletes to do the things he wants to do there. He's not afraid of Saban. In fact, I think he wants to troll Saban as early and often. I feel like he may be this generation Steve Spurrier in terms of his ability to troll other coaches. And I'm here for it.
I kind of thought, part of me was like, I think he just relishes the opportunity to go against Nick Saban every single year. I think in his mind, he's a better coach than Nick Saban, and he's going to prove that he can come in here and he can consistently knock off the big boy. And he doesn't want to wait until the SEC championship to do it. He wants to be the team that keeps Alabama from getting to the SEC.
He wants to be the thorn in Saban's side.
Yep. I do fundamentally believe that was part of why he took this job, because when he went to Tennessee, he was there talking, how much he was going to destroy Bama every year. And so, which I thought that's why I was completely shocked when he took the job at Alabama. I was just like, really? Okay. I mean, and it worked out, but I was shocked that but yeah, that's going to be, I think that's a good hire for Ole Miss, though. I think Ole Miss is in a position right now where they make the SEC West that much more competitive, because you've got a great offensive mind there who, again, he's a guy who knows how to put people in position to be successful. He schemes really well. He coaches guys up to be competitive. And if he can get the recruits to believe in him and come and play for him at Ole Miss, they're going to have a chance to do some damage in the SEC West.
I'm not going to say this was a grand slam hire, because that's predicated on the results.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
But it is definitely a splash hire. It's a hire that wins the press. People definitely are talking about this hire. So I feel like Ole Miss, if you want to grade out these programs, I'm going to have to give Ole Miss an A- on this hire.
That's what we didn't do for the other hires. We need to go back and give some grades on these hires, but we'll start.
We can go back. Ole Miss, I'm giving them an A-, just because this was as good as you were going to get in terms of a hire. I'm gonna be honest with you. They Mike Shula, this past coach that they fired, Matt Luke, he was Mike Shula 2.0. He was basically the NCAA was snooping around. They had some self-imposed bowl bans. And he was just keeping the ship afloat until they can get somebody who they wanted. And this is about as good a successor to Hugh Freeze as you could possibly ask for. So I like it for Ole Miss. I really do. Now, time will tell if this was really a good hire or not. Does he flake out like he did at USC? Let's see. But yeah, right now I give this hire an A-.
All right, so let's talk Missouri football then. So Missouri recently got a new coach as well. They got the guy from Appalachian State. Yep, they got the App State former coach in Drinkwitz, which I think is a good hire. I think that Appalachian State program had come a long way with him, and they've been doing their thing in their conference. I think it's a good hire for them. Where do you rank that hire for Missouri with the former App State coach, Elijah Drinkwitz?
Elijah was only the head coach for a year. Let's be clear, because the previous head coach,
that's right. That's true. That's what they have as I'm giving him too much credit. He was at NC State before that, and he was a OC there.
Yes.
Cool. He's actually bounced around a lot now that I'm looking at his resume here. He was here at Auburn for a little while as a quarterback coach in 2010.
I've heard his name come up as possible when we I think when Lindsey left, I remember his name popping up for some people as like,
as a
hey, well, I'm
possible
gonna look at
OC.
this
Yeah,
guy. Yeah.
yeah. Then he was at
So that's
Arkansas State.
why he sounds kind of familiar to me. He has been here before.
Yeah, he's a Gus
Um,
Malzahn guy apparently because he was again with Auburn in 2010. Then he went to Arkansas State in 2012,
mhm.
2013. Then he went to Boise after that, and then he was at NC State, then Appalachian State, and now at Missouri. He's bounced around a few times in the last 10 years.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give this higher. I'm gonna give it a B. I'm gonna give it a B just because he did do a good job this year with App State. I can't knock him for that. He scared the crap out of Michigan on the road.
Yeah,
So I think this is a pretty good hire. And for Missouri, I mean they got Barry Odom from Memphis. So they're going to go to smaller schools to pluck these types of coaches. They're going to have a hard time getting a coach from a bigger program. So this is kind of up their alley of what they have to do to get a good coach. Why not Elijah Drinkwitz? So
yeah. Okay,
so I give it the B.
So let's jump back to one that we've already talked about a little bit, which is the. Now there was one that we have not mentioned. Well, let's jump back to one we've already talked about. We'll do Auburn's last. We'll rate that last. But the coach at Arkansas now. How are we rating that hire there?
Probably a C plus. Probably C plus. I didn't look up. I don't know if you got any stats on Sam Pittman. Has he been a head coach ever?
Let's take a look at what Sam Pittman's resume is.
I don't know if he's been a head coach. And I'm gonna be honest with you, he was calling plays for Georgia. And yes, Georgia had a lot of injuries on the offensive side this year. A lot of receivers they lost to the league. They look pretty predictable at times offensively this year.
He's been an assistant head coach a couple of times. He actually was at Arkansas before as the O-line coach.
Okay. Under who?
This was 2013 to 2015 when he was in Arkansas.
So that would
have been Bielema.
That's Bielema.
Yeah. Other than that, he's been O-line coaches everywhere else. A couple other assistant jobs at North Carolina, Northern Illinois, Western Michigan back in '99. But outside of that, it's been O-line coaching.
Has he been an offensive coordinator anywhere else?
Nope, it's O-line and head coach.
See, I want to drop him even further. I really do, because I'm like, what are we going on, Arkansas? Like, what are we going on to say, hey, this is the guy to lead our program in the right direction?
Right. Yeah. So, Keontae says Arky's grasping for straws. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think this was one of those things where
this is a C minus.
Yeah,
I would be nice and give them a C minus. So they may be a D.
I think this is one of those things where they were just like, you know what, we're just going to take a flyer on somebody and hopefully, we'll see what works out. But because honestly, can you get much worse than not winning an SEC game for the past 2 years?
Sure.
Like,
sure,
they're just like, all right, we'll just go get somebody, right?
And they got a hodgepodge of talent. Like, I don't know what they do. Do they run the 3 yards and cloud of dust talent, or they spread? Like, what do they have?
Yeah, I think the thing with them was hopefully they feel as if because this guy's been to Arkansas before, like we talked about, some stuff is a cultural fit. He's a better cultural fit for the school.
I agree.
And hopefully because of his profile as playing, coaching at Georgia, he can recruit better talent that's going to be more akin to the system that fits well with what they want to do in Arkansas.
Hard to get him to lead Georgia for Arkansas, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know. We will see. Arkansas has a long road to hoe, and we'll see how it goes.
C minus for Arkansas.
All right, so we've talked about the Ole Miss hire. You gave them an A minus. We've talked about the Missouri hire. You gave them was it a B?
A B.
Yeah, C minus for the Arkansas hire.
Matt Luke to Georgia.
Yeah, the only other ones that we have not talked about is the Matt Luke to Georgia one. So offensive line coach now replacing Sam Pittman over in Georgia. How do you think that's going to work out, and what are you giving that?
Good pickup. This is another one that I talked about. Again, I wasn't convinced Chad Morris was coming to Auburn, so I was already getting Plan B lined up. And to me, Plan B was Matt Luke. because like quarterback, Chad Morris addresses the quarterbacks, but we also have a little issue on the offensive line side of things as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a guy who called plays alongside Hugh Freeze. So he does some of the things that Malzahn likes to do, similar type stuff. We know Hugh Freeze threw a lot more than Malzahn ever would have wanted to in a game. But I felt like he recruits well, players like him. So yeah, I felt like he was a good pickup for Georgia. I think he recruits well. The players will respond to him. I'm gonna give this one an A- as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think this is a bit. I don't think Matt Luke is suited to be a head coach. Maybe an offensive coordinator, but I think he is in the position where he needs to be, which is an offensive line coach. He was an offensive lineman. Yeah, I mean, he played offensive line when he was in school. He knows how to coach the position. I think this is good for Georgia, specifically because Georgia is one of those teams that wants to dominate in the trenches, and they want to be able to run the ball a lot. They're going to get the running back talent. You need somebody to make sure that offensive line is protecting the quarterback and run blocking well. I think Matt Luke is a home run hire for Georgia. I don't know that you could have gotten a better person who already knows the SEC because he's coached here for the last 6-7 years, including as a head coach. And he knows the position really well. So I think this is a great hire for them. Looking forward to seeing kind of what Georgia does. Hopefully he doesn't do too well, because I, of course, still want to beat Georgia. But I do think this is a good hire for them.
I'm gonna upgrade them to an A, not A+, but an A. I'm gonna say an A for this pickup. It was smooth, quick. It was a no-brainer. And the reason I feel so high is I wanted them for us had Chad Morris bailed and went somewhere else and got a head coaching gig somewhere. So yes, Matt Luke was a good pickup. I give them an A. That brings us to Auburn and Chad Morris. Am I giving a grade here, or are you giving your thoughts first?
I mean, honestly, I think this is the guy who we should have hired. Like, this was the hire that should have happened. Of course, we're going to have to play out how it works, but I was 100% on board with this hire when I heard of it being a possibility. I don't know that we could have landed anybody higher. I'm going to give it an A+. I think this was the hire that we were supposed to get for this coach and for this team. Again, we're going to have to see how it works out, but I don't have any hesitancy saying that this was a good hire. This is a good scheme fit. This is a good personality fit. I think everything about Chad Morris fits well with this program where we sit today.
I can see why him and Gus are friends. Like, he has a similar demeanor. Just mild-mannered, just works. I get it. I see it. I'm with you. Who, if not Chad? I mean, granted, I brought up Matt Luke, but what other splash hire out there that you could have got had Chad Morris fell through, right?
Yeah.
And with Gus Malzahn's reputation as being difficult to work with and implement ideas with, this was it for us. It was all downhill. It was either Chad or bust, pretty much. So for us to get him as swiftly as we did, A+. Now, how we utilize Chad is a whole other conversation that we can have with the rest of the game. But in terms of getting him to the Plains, A+.
Yep, I think so too. I'm looking at some of these coaching things right here. South Carolina. I'm looking forward to seeing kind of how Will Muschamp rebuilds his program. He's let go a couple of coaches, demoted a few coaches. So
he's got 1 year.
Yeah, I think if he doesn't,
he's got 1 year.
Let's talk about in the last few minutes here. We've talked about the coaching hires that have happened. Let's talk about coaching hot seats really quickly. Like, who are the coaches that need to be able to perform really, really well this year to keep their job in the SEC? And what do you think is that barrier or that standard that has to happen in order for that to happen for those coaches?
Well, we already brought him up. Let's talk about Muschamp.
Yeah. How many games do you think Muschamp's got to win?
He has to win 7 or more games.
7 or more games. So we think that if Will Muschamp does not win at least 7 games next year, he is done at South Carolina. I tend to agree with you. I think that he's got to at least make it to a bowl game. And I don't think just making it to a bowl game is going to be enough. I think I think he saved his job.
He has to clear the 6 games relatively early.
Yep, I don't think it can't be. I think if it's in doubt, the last couple of games of the season, whoever the offensive coordinator or the defensive is Tavares Williams. Still Tavares Robinson still there as his DC. Tavares might be the interim coach last couple of games of the season. If
interim head coach to his resume,
if Muschamp doesn't make it,
he has to. And I'm being generous when I say I don't know how upset South Carolina Gamecock fans are, or how impatient they are. I don't have a pulse on that, but he has to win at least 7. I venture to say 8. Like there has to be a swift. I think he has. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. He has to double the amount of wins he had this year to get the heat off of him.
Yeah, I don't think that's a. I don't think that's a bad thing to make a statement on. I think he needs a good season here. He had South Carolina fans get their hopes up after the Georgia win that they were going to turn their season into something, and they made a disastrous move in the opposite direction. So things that I think that he has to do, 8 wins, 7 to 8 wins is right where I would anticipate that needing to happen. He's going to have to be, if not beat them, be competitive in the South Carolina game. If he makes it that far, like if he has a terrible beginning of the season, that's what I meant, the Clemson game.
Yeah.
If he's only got 4 or 5 wins prior, like a couple of games before Clemson, he might not even coach. Yeah,
he's not even coaching.
But I think he needs to have 8 wins going into that game, 7 to 8 wins going into Clemson, and not get embarrassed against Clemson. If he's coaching for his job, meaning that he only has 6 or 7 wins in Clemson, and they go out there and get thrashed, he's done.
I don't even see how he even makes it to Clemson. Like if that's the case, because that's a road game this next year. Yeah. You're getting ran off the field. If you need Clemson to give you any sort of idea whether or not this is your guy, just fire him. Just fire him already. Just get rid of him because it's not happening.
Yeah.
So he has to give the program some sort of hope that we're probably going to take this L to Clemson on the road, but he's done enough to let us know that he's starting to right the ship. Let's give him another.
So 8 years and a blowout at Clemson. Like, does he still keep his job? Not 8 years, but 8 games. So like he wins 8 games, but the Clemson games is a disaster. Like they're not, because again, this is their rival. Like I think you can say the same thing about Gus Malzahn in that, he can win 7 or 8 games in the season and get blown out by Alabama and Georgia, and he's not safe. Like winning the minimum games to get you to a bowl and getting blown out by your rival is not going to cut it in Auburn. It doesn't cut it in South Carolina.
All right. Here's where I see nothing but orange and blue. Okay. Here's where I put on my bias.
Yeah.
Auburn, South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm not debating that. I'm just saying it's your rival though.
Grapes. Not even oranges. You know what I mean? You have to understand what kind of program you got. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Is, you know what I mean? Like when has South Carolina won anything?
SEC East a couple of years back, a couple of times.
Years.
Yeah, that's like it.
You gotta crawl before you can walk. Like take the 8 wins. He really and truly 8 wins should be what you should be striving for as a program. I mean, Georgia, you have a giant in the East now with Georgia. Like, and you beat them with Muschamp. So my thing is that you get 8 wins. That should hold you serve. I mean, you want to get to where you're becoming striking distance with Clemson, and you're not. That should be the goal. Now, if you get ran off the field, you still got 8 wins.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know where I don't know what triggers South Carolina to say, you know what, this ain't it. Let's look elsewhere. But if he gets them 8 wins going into Clemson, I think he saved his job.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I was just trying to see, maybe if you thought something different about how much that rivalry plays into his ability to keep his job.
Indeed. The next guy, Derek Mason, Vanderbilt. He had a rough year.
Rough couple years.
Yes.
Yeah.
James Franklin ain't walking through that door anytime soon, but
that's
a rap skis. I don't know what he does. I don't know what he does.
How many years does Derek Mason have left on his contract? Let me look that up real quick.
Yeah, you can look that up. I don't know what you do. to turn this one around. I really don't, because he's not as good as previous coach. I don't know what you do, because Kentucky is surprisingly good. Tennessee appears to be heading in the right direction. Maybe you can snipe Missouri while they're rebuilding up under their new guy, Drinkwitz. But where are your wins coming from in the SEC? You're not beating Georgia. You're not beating Florida. Like where are your wins coming from? Hope you play Arkansas. Are they playing Arkansas next year?
I'd have to look at their
That'll be the Cellar Dweller Bowl, but maybe you can pick them off if they're on your schedule. But where are your wins coming from? I don't know. I think he is a dead coach walking.
Yeah, he just got an extension too. Let's see. Received a contract extension in 2017 that took him from 2 to 5 years.
He's got 4 left.
Let's see.
3 left. What's his buyout?
That's a good question too.
He's a dead coach walking, bro. You consider what Vanderbilt is, their schedule. I don't see it.
So how many games do you think Derek made? Let's see. There are no words on the link of the buyouts. Probably won't be letters always. I don't see anything on his buyout here that I'm looking at.
I'm pulling up Vanderbilt's 2020 football schedule. Okay, they got Mercer. Okay, that's one. They're at Missouri. Maybe they can pick Drinkwitz off early. What you think?
Vanderbilt at Missouri. Missouri.
Got a tough schedule. They have a tough schedule this year. They got at Missouri. Then after that, their non-conference is at Kansas State. That's not a W. So they're going to beat Mercer. They may get Missouri early. They may. I say they won't. They play Colorado State. Is that 2?
Mm-hmm.
The only other
that's going to be a tough win, but I think Colorado State's not going to be. But I think they can beat them. Yeah.
The other soft game is Louisiana Tech. Every other game is a conference game.
So I think his contract actually ends in 2020.
They play Lane Kiffin at Vanderbilt Stadium. That's their other West matchup. Who else they play in the West? They've got to play. Oh, they play at Texas A&M.
I think this is the last year of his contract, Derek Mason.
It is?
So he signed a 2-year contract in 2016. Then they extended it to 5 years. So 2021 is the last year. So he's only got 2 more seasons left on his current contract. Yeah, that seat's pretty warm there for you, Derek.
I wish we could keep Boyz II Men end of the road, but this is the end of the road for him, bro. Joe Moorhead, Mississippi State. They finished 6-6 this year. They slid.
This is what his second season.
So now,
it's his second season as head coach. This will be third year coming up.
It's always rough to follow the guy who creates stability for your program, isn't it? Because that's what Mullen did for Mississippi State, and you got to question the culture fit for Moorhead. He came from Penn State, wasn't really a South guy. They lost some games they probably should have won. It was looking pretty dicey for him at points this year. There was a lot of grumblings, but he was able to get him to a bowl game.
Moorhead does not have a buyout.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what does he have to do? What does he have to do to keep the heat off of him?
I think 6 wins.
Unlike Derek Mason, he can turn some things around. I can see where he could possibly turn some things around. He can't lose Ole Miss though.
They've been a sleeper pick in the SEC West like the last 2 or 3 years. People are like, oh, they're going to make noise this year. They're going to make noise. And they've just been constantly disappointing. their fans there. Like they haven't really been good since Dak Prescott left. They were okay with Fitzgerald, but they weren't really a good team, even in those last couple of years with Fitzgerald. So
Mullen was able to get them 7-8 wins a year.
And I think this year he's got to get at least 6 wins. But yeah, him not having a buyout on his contract, if there's another splashy hire that exists out there, he's out. He's out the door. Like if you hear about anybody else who's like, oh man, this is the up and coming coach, Mississippi State's going to start recruiting that guy mid-season if Moorhead doesn't produce a couple of wins early in a year. That's crazy. I didn't realize he had no buyout.
He actually can turn this around.
Yeah, I don't think it's. Yeah,
this is actually doable. New Mexico Lobos at NC State. He may take an L there. He may win that. Who knows? Yeah, but he's playing Arkansas at home. That's a win.
He can win that.
Tulane's a scary game for them.
Should win.
That's a scary game for them.
Yeah.
They should win, but that's a scary game. Tulane, if you recall, they gave us a hard time.
Yeah, no, not debating whether or not they're a good team, but he should walk out of there with a W.
Okay, so that's 3.
So here's the thing.
A&M. Let's give him an L there.
That's the 4th game of the season, Texas A&M, or the 5th?
5th. He could be 4-0. He could be 4-0 going into Texas A&M.
If he is not above 500 going into that Texas A&M game, his hot seat gets he's got to win at least 3 of those first 4 games, in my opinion. He can't drop 2 of those first 4.
I'm with you. He has to win. I'm gonna say he almost has to have 3 wins. Going
yes, what I said. He's got to win. He's got to win 3 of those.
After that is Bama, LSU, Auburn, Missouri, Kentucky, and then A&M.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 3 of those
might
first
need to be undefeated.
Yeah, he's got because where are you going to get your other 2 wins to get bowl eligible if you don't win your first 4 games?
He has to beat. He
like
may have a shot
Ole Miss.
at Missouri. He may have a shot at Missouri.
Yeah. Tough sledding.
You got A&M, and then you got Ole Miss. He has to beat Ole Miss.
Yeah.
He has to beat Lane Kiffin in his first year. If he doesn't beat Lane Kiffin may actually send him packing if he's not a dead man walking already.
Yeah. I'll say if he does not have 6 wins going into the Ole Miss game and they go out there and lose that, that'll be it for him. But I feel like he's going to have to start his season 3-1, 4-0, one of those 2, for him to even get that far. Yeah,
he's got to start hot because it's rough. It gets ugly as this year goes on for him.
Super tough for him.
That's a murderous row. Alabama, LSU, and Auburn in 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's rough. That's real rough.
Goodness gracious. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm a little worried about that game, actually, because we played them on the road, and their quarterback did get better. He gave us some problems for sure. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think we're going to be better next year offensively, though. So, I mean, if we only score 21 points again, then yes, it's going to be a disastrous situation. But hopefully, that's not the case this time coming up. Yes, prayerfully, we get better offensively, so it's not going to be the same situation. What else do we have as far as hot seats in the SEC? I think pretty much everyone else. I don't think Mark Stoops is in any danger. I don't think Dan Mullen is in any danger.
No.
Jeremy
someone who could potentially end up with the hot seat. Let's keep an eye out on A&M's coach.
I was about to say Jimbo Fisher because he's the guy who they've
been 75. That 75 that gets old considering what they're paying him. He's what?
Top 5? He's getting paid a ton of money. His buyout's north of like $50,000.
He ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, they're not going to fire him right now. It's just because the buyout.
I'm saying just keep a lookout on his seat. His seat may start warming up if he produces another 7-5 year.
Do you think that Gus Malzahn has gotten himself off of the hot seat?
No.
I don't think so either.
No. I think everything is based on potential with what Chad Morris can do. Basically, Chad Morris holds Malzahn's future in his hands. If Well, I take that back. Malzahn holds his own future because he can decide whether or not he want to turn Chad Morris loose or not. But if he does turn Chad Morris loose and Chad Morris produces, then yes, Chad Morris does hold Malzahn's future in his hands, and he can actually buy Malzahn 2 to 3 more years, considering the offense continues to produce and do well. I'll tell you this. Here's my hope. Here's my best case scenario, right? I'm saying 2 to 3 more years he buys Gus, but that's predicated on him retooling Auburn's offense. And what I mean by that is Malzahn got into this area where he loved running read option, right?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't matter if it was Nick Marshall or Jarrett Stidham. There were just certain things that was just typical Auburn offense, what we like to do. If Chad Morris can get Malzahn to buy into a new identity of Auburn's offense with a more complex passing scheme, Malzahn has at least 2 to 3 more seasons as head coach at Auburn. If he can retool and redefine this offense instead of just do what Malzahn wants him to do, I think that Malzahn saves his job. I think his seats begins to cool because our offense begins to do stuff that defenses are not ready for. And it's going to take them 2 to 3 years to catch up to what we're doing. So that's the hope.
Yeah.
Remains to be seen, though.
Definitely remains to be seen how successful this venture is going to be. But I agree with you. If Chad Morris comes in and our offense takes a significant tick up, and I mean significant, we cannot, I don't think we can start slow. And like you've got returning SEC freshman of the year, blah, 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 right? Bo Nix, passing records, all this stuff. If we come out and we start slow with a returning quarterback who's supposed to be touted as one of the best ones in SEC history at Auburn, and they come out slow on offense. I mean, they're literally returning every skill player next year on offense. There's no reason.
Low key, our running backs. It'd be remain to see what our offensive line looks like. But our running backs, we're gonna have a stable of running backs.
Our skill players are going to probably be the best that they've been in a while here at Auburn this year. The offensive line really is going to be what's going to determine that, how well those guys who are coming in that are JUCO transfers pick up the schemes and system. We've got a couple of
5-star running back coming in. He's going to be your number 3 guy probably. Like we got skill players for days.
Yeah, so there's literally no reason this offense is as good or worse than it was this year. And we're going to need it to be because I think the defense does take a step back. I don't know how much of a step back because I still believe in the talent that we have on the defensive side of the ball, and I have supreme confidence in the guy who's coaching them. So,
Coach is.
Yeah. I just don't know.
We have a great staff on defense. Like those guys can recruit, and they've done a good job of developing and coaching of the talent we do have. So, I'm eager to see what kind of leadership we get on the defensive side of the ball. We have some great leaders on that side of the ball. And,
For sure.
And it's a testament to their ability to remain engaged even when the offense was struggling and those guys was on the field a lot, for them to continue to produce the way they did. The LSU game was something to just be praised, how those guys kept Auburn in it. But that was leadership. So I'm curious to see what kind of leaders emerge. I'm looking at the Smoke Mondays. I'm looking at.
I think KJ Britt's gonna. Yeah.
I'm looking at. You know what I mean? I'm looking at those guys and somebody on the D line.
Because Quintus Miller or like those guys who've been rotational players going to have to step up and do a much better job this year leading that front.
So we're going to have to see some leaders emerge pretty much at every level to ensure that this defense doesn't fall off.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, it remains to be seen though.
Awesome. I don't think Jeremy Pruitt's in any danger right now. I think he turned his season around pretty well at Tennessee, so I think he's okay. And everybody else in the SEC is just kind of like they're too new or they're too cemented in where they are. Kirby Smart's not going anywhere. Nick Saban's not going anywhere. Dan Mullen's not going anywhere. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for the hot seats as far as the coaches are concerned. So
the shoes coach not going anywhere.
Yeah, Ogeron's not going anywhere. So that's it for the coaches here in the SEC. It's going to be interesting. I think we definitely got more interesting. We've got some more storylines that we can get beaten to the ground as the season comes along, where they're going to talk about the same things over and over again with these guys. We're going to hear a lot more about the coaching journeys for some of these people as they get into the season. But I am looking forward to the next year of SEC football with some of these changes that are happening. Also looking forward to the end of recruiting to kind of see how some of these changes that have happened play out with recruits moving around and all that kind of thing. So it's going to be super interesting how the recruiting battle plays out over the next couple of months.
Bet. Tell them where you can find us, Ike.
Yes, sir. As always, on Instagram and Twitter, the War Rapport is where we are. If you are watching this on YouTube, and you should be watching this on YouTube, clicking like and subscribe on the videos and the content that we're putting out here so we can continue to bring this great content to you all, keep you updated on everything Auburn football. We'll talk a little bit about some of the other Auburn sports. If you didn't catch the beginning of this and you want to watch the replay of this, we talked a little bit about Auburn basketball at the beginning of this show. But yeah, we look forward to sitting down with you guys and talking more as the months go along. And we have some interesting topics coming up to bridge the gap between now and bowl season. Of course, we're going to be talking Auburn bowl game as that comes along. We look forward to bringing that to you, man. That's all we got for today. We're out of here. As always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.